Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Once again, it's the sound of rock cracking. Here we are after the presidential election, going on 3 weeks now, and the rocks are still cracking. Heads are about to blow up on the left because President Trump won't concede. And should he? Well, last week we had the first press conference detailing some election fraud. And it did. And the press saying, where's the evidence? Well, they laid it out there, got it started, and we got to see more. We got to see some court cases. Got to happen quick. But I tell you, President Trump has still got a chance to be reelected if they count all the legal votes that have been watched, credentialed, and made sure they were all legal. And the illegal ones should not vote. When does a vote become a legal vote? Is it when someone marks a page or marks a ballot? Well, no, anybody can mark a ballot. Are they illegal aliens? Are they citizens? Are they registered citizens? Are they still alive by the name that's on it, that's supposed to get that ballot? Well, obviously some people have come back from the dead, not in the hundreds, but the thousands, even tens of thousands across the country. We've had some resurrections. People voted from the dead. And people joke about it, but when it's in the tens of thousands, it's no joke. Especially when it can flip an election. But it's not just the dead voting. It's the ballots that were pristine, just were not folded, that got run through the ballot machines, and they all had the same ink marking. And hundreds of thousands just for Joe Biden. You would think there'd be hundreds of thousands for Donald Trump if people around the country just wanted to vote the presidential election. Well, there's a lot more to that. What are legal votes? Going back and looking at that. Well, the whole process has to be watched. If it's not watched, it's not a legal vote. If you don't have people from both sides watching it to make sure illegal activities did not occur. So a lot to look at. And listen, you got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday, and our nation is in a position it's never been in. We've had contested elections for president before, but we've never had a press and a media that was so high-strung to get one candidate in, they won't even look at evidence. And we've had, in Michigan, we've had public officials being harassed and because they would not credential a crooked election in Detroit and Wayne County. In fact, this was on Steve Bannon's WarRoom, and we'll play a little more for Steve Bannon. And we're going to talk about some of the things. And we talk about Frodo. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan? Read the novel from J.R. Tolkien, or see the great movies that were made by Peter Jackson, the directed. Well, I remember in the last days of the Soviet Union, some citizens would hold up homemade signs saying, "We are Frodo." What does that mean? Well, the Trump voters, we are Frodo. We want freedom. We want to break the power of evil. The Eye of Sauron on the mountain of Mordor. That's what Dominion software. The Eye of Sauron. The Eye of Sauron. If we do not fight voter fraud now, will we ever have freedom? Will we really be a democracy?
Are you going to
What did Trump promise you? What did Trump promise you?
Where's the fraud? Where's the evidence of fraud? Where's the evidence of fraud? Where is the evidence of fraud? Shame on you! Certify the results! Certify the results! Congressman Barrett! Certify the results! Meetings! Certify the results! Certify the results! Certify! Why are you meeting?
Now, anybody that stands up for truth and righteousness, somebody who wants the truth, somebody that says this election was not without fraud when they had more voters than they had people registered in several precincts, and all the other activities going on in Wayne County, and this, what you heard, that mob, is the same thing on the streets we've seen in the mobs that march through the summer in different streets, yelling at people. And when they're trying to eat outside of the restaurant, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the organization, with people yelling in people's faces. The time after the Republican National Convention, people leaving the White House and harassed on the streets because the police were absent and minimized and didn't have numbers to help. And it was on purpose, just like this man who had a public official. He was going to go to the White House and talk to President Trump. And he was harassed by a mob. You know, and what they want to do is show more and more mob action to intimidate anybody from coming forward. I talked about the Trump voters are like Frodo. We are standing up for freedom, and the eye of Sauron, the Dominion software, the eye of Sauron over the evil mountain Mordor, they don't want the truth. They don't want the truth. In fact, Steve Bannon, now where is Steve Bannon? If the eye of Sauron is Dominion software, what would you call Steve Bannon? And if the Trump voters are Frodo, well, Aragorn, one of the heroes to help protect Frodo, that would be Steve Bannon. He's fearless. Sometimes maybe a little reckless in what he says, but he's fearless. And you hear him on WarRoom. And let me just play this clip for you. That he has a 2-hour show twice a day that gets great information out. You're not going to get information on the mainstream media anymore. Not at Fox News. You can't trust Fox News for what they put out. So take a listen to what Steve Bannon had to say, or who I would say is Aragorn. Let's see what he had to say.
Where's Twitter on that? Where's Facebook on that? That's a mob, okay? All they're there is to harass and to try to frighten you. That's a public official, right? That's a public official that is doing his job, going to the White House to see the chief magistrate of this nation, the President of the United States, and he's mobbed at the airport in Michigan, and he's mobbed when he gets to Reagan National Airport in our nation's capital. Where are the police? Where are the Capitol Police? Where are federal authorities? They knew where he's coming in. Why is there no protection for him? This is what you're up against. This is what we're fighting. We are not going to bend to this mob. That's the future. That's the future of your country. Those are the people. You see, count all the votes. They don't care if they're illegal alien votes. They don't care if they're coming back from the dead. They don't care if they're made up. Count all the votes. Count all the votes. Well, no, we're not going to count all the votes. It's not going to happen. You're going to be tearing your hair out. You're going to be crying. You're going to be having riots. We don't care. We don't care. We're not counting all the votes. We're going to only count the legal, certifiable chain of custody from living folks that are registered to vote. Those are the votes that we're going to count, and we're not going to count anything else. And when we count those, Donald Trump's going to win in a massive landslide. We don't care how many Lamar Alexanders. We don't care how many Bob Corkers. We don't care. And by the way, people in Tennessee ought to be ashamed. You got the Corkers of the world and the Lamar Alexanders of the world and all these guys out there right now saying they're throwing towel. We're not throwing out the towel. Heck, folks, we're not even halfway through this. This is going to get a lot uglier.
And you see Steve Bannon just right on there, strong, standing strong. And every day you hear him on a WarRoom on his YouTube channel. So you might want to listen in on some of that. But I'm telling you, he's sort of leading the posse to say this is not over and you need to stick to it. You heard him lay on the Bob Corker and Lamar Alexander. And the people of Tennessee are ashamed of those two. I mean, the people in Tennessee is Trump country. And to have their two senators, weak-kneed Republicans, it's really a shame. And former senators now. But that, my goodness, Bob Corker, former senator, a Republican senator, had been there for years. He worked so well with Barack Obama and helping the Iranian deal that President Obama reached without the Senate because of Bob Corker's help, if you remember back then. And Lamar Alexander, well, he's on his way out. Thank goodness. Thank goodness is what I would say. Now, listen, wow, there's so much to talk about. And if you did not hear the press conference last week with Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, love to play it here. Things are moving so fast. I just say go back and listen to it. Very important to listen to that press conference because they did put out evidence, affidavits of what people who swear on having to go to jail if they're lying. So they have witnessed things that are illegal and have witnessed votes in the thousands that have been changed, switched, or not been able to let Republican observers see what was going on. And Rudy Giuliani pointed out, and he was mayor of big city New York, a Democratic stronghold. He was a Republican. But he emphasized how for years Philadelphia has been a place where voter frauds happen. Talking about people being bussed in from Camden, New Jersey to vote in Philadelphia illegally. But you know, when you don't have to have IDs and you get mailed out ballots and there's no IDs, this was fraud that was purposely planned out for months and months. And then what really scares me when you talk about all the big cities in America, but he was saying, Giuliani said, the fraud, the level of voters, more voters in precincts, more voters than are registered voters in precincts, meaning somebody stuffed the ballot box somehow. They only happened in about 4 cities, all the big cities in America. It could be a little voter fraud, but there was massive in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh. These were the places, and Atlanta, Georgia. These were the places where suspicious things happened, and they were huge percentage of voters in precincts, where usually it might be 60, 50, 60, and they had 89, 90, 95, in some places 110, some places, I saw some counties or precincts 200% votes and voters on a row. And the left-wing media don't want to say anything about it. The mainstream media don't want to say anything. Fox News don't want to say anything about it. So what are we to do if you're Frodo? Do you keep going to Mordor to get rid of that ring of all, the Lord of all rings? That's the one that everybody wants power. If you read the novel, saw the movies, that's the ring everybody wants because it brings all the rings together and gives enormous power. No man can. They just can't handle the power. So it takes a little hobbit like Frodo to get rid of it. And for those who know the novel and watched the movies, remember there was a creature that wanted the ring very, very badly. I mean, he lived for the ring, and he lost it to the Baggins, Bilbo Baggins. But it was Frodo, Bilbo's nephew, who was trying to return the ring to Mordor. And he had to get it there to drop it in the volcanic fire to melt, so it would melt away and nobody could claim that power that would link all the powers of the earth together. And so, if you look at, if we say Aragorn was maybe Steve Bannon, and the Trump voters are Frodo, well, what would that monster, or that little creature be that wanted power so bad, called Gollum? You know, I think the Lincoln Project and the Never Trumpers are Gollum. They're the little creatures that thirst for power so much, and they hate Donald Trump so much, just like Gollum hated Frodo and the Baggins. So, man, I just that just fits perfect for the Lincoln Project. Never Trumpers. They're the creatures, the Gollum, that wants that ring because they want power. Now, in just a minute, we're going to talk more about the Dominion software, and we're going to tell you what Sidney Powell said about it, and we're going to go into that in detail some. Before we do, let me remind you, listen to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. That's webtalkradio.net. And during election time, election's over, we still have people tuning in for the first time to hear things here on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics that you won't hear anywhere else. I don't think anybody else is saying Trump voters are like Frodo Baggins, giving you something to sink your teeth into and think about as we chew on this and wait for the evidence to appear in court and keep pushing forward. Like Steve Bannon said, we got this. Donald Trump's going to be reelected. He won in a landslide when all the legal votes are counted, and just the legal votes. So it's up to a team of lawyers, and we're up against the evil eye of Sauron on the Mountain of Mordor. That's your news media that's ever watching. And just like we heard that clip about harassing the Republican official there from Wayne County, they become a mob yelling, just like they've done in White House press conferences. They're not trying to get news. They are vicious, like a mob, mobbing people and shouting people down, not waiting for answers, not accepting answers. And that's what our whole country is going to be if we give up and let this crowd of leftists take control. Now, if Donald Trump gets every legal vote counted, and just the legal votes, and he gets beat, and Joe Biden becomes the president, okay, I can live with that. But we cannot live with not knowing if every vote's legal, or if we got a president who got there illegally. So that's why this is so important. And I was telling you, I'm glad we got new listeners to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We look forward to you listening to us. Go back and look in our archives. And I'll remind you, we got a book called Bedrock Truth. And we need truth more than anything right now. We don't need to see whose candidate should win, left, right. We need the truth. And let the truth set us free. I've heard that somewhere. It's proclaimed on a Liberty Bell, isn't it? Let Liberty ring throughout the land. Right there from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And that's where we have some voter fraud that Rudy Giuliani pointed out. But you can get the book by going to www.docholliday.org. Holliday's got 2 L's in it. So go there. You can order that book. Got some more books you can take a look at, and feel free to order those. But now let me remind you that in just a minute, as we talk about this software system, Dominion software, there's some others that have been bought out and put in, and websites are being scrubbed all over the place of the history of these companies. So you have to go back in the archives, and people have to show how these companies bought each other out. But it started in where? Venezuela. Where who? It was Chavez, now it's Maduro, the leftist communist dictators in Venezuela. And the software started there. That's what we found from Sidney Powell. They've got someone who signed, a former officer for Chavez, who was there when they talked about they needed a software to make him win, allow him to win every election. It was developed there in Venezuela. This officer now lives in the United States, and he has come forward, and he said what he realized the same thing was happening here was happening in other election. Why? Because on election night they stopped the counting. And he said it reminded him because they had to stop the counting to reset the logarithm. And that's what this software is supposed to do. The people of Pennsylvania, I think there's over a million for sure that use the Dominion software in Pennsylvania. And here, one of the elected representatives there in Pennsylvania, they set up something to explain to the people about Dominion software, and had this Dominion is supposed to be there. Listen to what he had to say.
If you're tuning in today, you're probably wondering why you're not viewing a policy hearing. The committee scheduled a public hearing with Dominion voting systems to be held now. The members of the State Government Committee were looking forward to publicly addressing the plethora of accusations of Dominion voting systems in a format which would have allowed open and honest dialogue. I was impressed at what appeared to be the willingness of Dominion voting systems to address accusations, and it would have put 1.3 million Pennsylvanians who use their machines at ease, including myself. Thinking Dominion was willing to publicly back up their product, which Pennsylvania taxpayers invested millions to purchase and voters entrusted with their sacred ballots, was truly remarkable. I truly felt Pennsylvanians and the nation could get some answers into the truth of the effectiveness of Dominion voting systems. Unfortunately, last evening, Dominion voting systems lawyered up and backed out of their commitment to the people of Pennsylvania to provide their input in a public format and discuss their voting systems, of which 1.3 Pennsylvanians entrusted. Instead of running towards the light of honesty and integrity, Dominion voting systems retreated to the darkness. Why? Why would a vendor of public goods fear discussing their products sold to the public for the public good? If Dominion's products were successful and operated as they were supposed to, why wouldn't Dominion take the opportunity to publicly review its success? How hard is it to say our ballot machines worked exactly as promised and they are 100% accurate? Why, after weeks of accusations, has Dominion Voting Systems not released any analysis of the success of their voting machines to the public in order to stop their accusers in their tracks? They have nothing to hide. Why are they hiding from us? Today, I am saddened to report to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania and the 1.3 million voters who trusted Dominion Voting Systems with their ballots that Dominion Voting Systems has hung you out to dry and slapped you in your faces. Not only are Pennsylvanians more skeptical, but the actions of Dominion Voting Systems last night have led credibility to their accusers' accusations.
Folks, I believe this puts Dominion software in a bad light, their voting systems. They won't even publicly come forward and answer questions. They're lawyering up. So what do they have to hide? Well, I know one thing. Sidney Powell has accused them and alleged to them, and I think threatened them, because if Dominion tries to sue them for defamation, then they can open up discovery. They need to open up discovery. But Sidney Powell is the one that said that they have an affidavit from the former Chavez Venezuelan military officer. But that's not all. Listen to Sidney Powell, as she tweeted last week and said she was going to release the Kraken. And I hope she cracks some heads in Dominion, because what she's accusing, if it's true, and how they find it out, I know they got experts working on it now, supposedly, and mathematically, and looking in the computer. It is frightening. It's threatening our democracy. And why the Democrats are not rising up and calling for an investigation? How could we ever trust Joe Biden and anybody if this system, what she says, is true? Started out in Venezuela, and we've told it was a CIA designed system to begin with to help cheat in elections overseas. But now what people are saying, even Mitt Romney, who doesn't like Trump, he seems to be backing people when this software may have beat him in 2012. Why does he want to get to the bottom of it? And people said it can't be true, but Sidney Powell said if you're a Republican and you lost your election by 6 percentage points or less, you ought to be in this lawsuit. You should be filing a lawsuit. She's saying that Minion Software has built into the system a way to take 3 percentage points off the top and give them to the other side. That's what she seems to be implying, that she has the goods and she'll be able to prove it in a court of law. I hope so. But this is so threatening to our democracy. It's such a tremendous thought to think that somebody's controlling our elections. And she says the reason they got caught, there was one county, if you remember, in Michigan, that was brought out that 6,000 votes were supposed to go to Trump, and they were switched to Biden. And they called it a software glitch. Software doesn't make glitches. It's the way input is. You always hit garbage in, garbage out. There's not a glitch. And if it's there, it could be in other places. They hand counted 6,000 votes to see the mistake. Or it might have been hand counting 12,000. But all the county votes are to see where the mistake was, and they said it switched it over. Now, are other people checking that? I hope so. But the thought that 3% was placed in there automatically to cheat Republicans, it could be up and down the ballot. We got to find out. Maybe John James won the Senate seat. It could be that we have a Republican senator in New Mexico, if this is true. And Max Sally may have won in Arizona, if it's true. We got to find out. And there may be several more House seats, enough to fire Nancy Pelosi, if it's true. But we got to find out. And people need to know. Americans need to know that their vote is sacred and it counts, and we don't have it diminished by illegal votes or people stuffing the ballot box or tricking the software. But Sidney Powell said the reason why they were caught is because there was an overwhelming flow of Trump voters they did not expect. The fix was in for 3% to win the battleground states, but there were so many people voting they had to stop the count. And what happened is they stopped the count at the same time in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, and Arizona. I believe it was Arizona, but there's 5 states stopped all counting at one time. It may have been Nevada instead of Arizona, but they stopped. Why? Because supposedly, allegedly, Trump was coming in overwhelmingly than what their fixed software would allow, so they had to stop and refigure a new algorithm to give to the machines so that Biden would have enough votes to win. Now that is such a horrendous thought, to think that this software is cheating American voters. We have to know if it's true or not. We cannot be guessing. We cannot say, oh, maybe next time it won't happen. We have got to get to the bottom of this. That's why Donald Trump does not need to concede, and we need to back up the president to make sure this is investigated. Does he have time to do it before Joe Biden's declared the president, or we get 270 electoral votes? So Steve Bannon says, if you don't know for sure, how can you credential those votes? How can you give electors their papers to vote in the Electoral College if you cannot be sure of the vote? If you're not sure, you can't get 270 votes. It takes 270 to win the Electoral College. If nobody has 270 votes, then it goes to the House of Representatives. What happens there? Oh, the Democrats are in charge, and Nancy Pelosi. Ha, ha, ha. No, that's not true, because it's in the Constitution. If nobody gets 270 votes in the Electoral College, then it goes to the House, and every state gets one vote, and the Republicans would win it. So I'm not afraid if it goes to the House. And that may be what has to happen. But keep listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We're glad you're listening to us. And we have good things to look forward to. It's like Steve Bannon said, it can get a lot uglier if people get out in the streets and they want to count illegal votes. They say count all the votes. That is such a horrible slogan. Why do they send in votes from Mexico and Canada? Yeah, count all the votes. No, you count every legal vote, and it doesn't become legal till it goes through the process Just because you mark a ballot doesn't mean we know who you are, why you're marking it, if you're in the right state, living in the right state. Who knows? That's why we need voter ID. We need to know who people are, and it has to go through the legal process for both sides. Watch opening up envelopes of mailed-in ballots, and that did not happen. It needs to happen. And if it's not, those votes shouldn't be counted. So listen, keep listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. Trump voters, be like Frodo Baggins. Keep going. You know what a struggle he had to get that ring into the fire of Mordor. So I'm saying, keep going. Don't give up. Help each other out. Just like the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo had a lot of help. We need to help each other to get the truth out. If the truth hurts and Joe Biden got all the legal votes, so be it. But we need the truth, not a lie, not a guess, not a halfway vote, not a percentage of vote. That's what Dominion software was. It puts every vote into fractions. Why would a software system put votes into fractions? It makes no sense, and that's the reason it happens. Listen, we got a lot to listen to, learn to what's happening in the courts, and pray and thank God that there's still a chance out there for the truth to win out. Keep listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. Have a happy Turkey Day, happy Thanksgiving. Give thanks to God that we have a country that has a chance to see freedom through and be a part of that chance. But happy Thanksgiving, even if you don't get to celebrate it with your family because you got a Democratic governor, even if you can't travel, have a happy Thanksgiving. Make it a merry time. Enjoy life and know the truth is going to win out. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.